Depression isn't just feeling sad or having a bad day. It's a deep, often invisible weight that presses down on someone's life, quietly, steadily, and relentlessly. It doesn't always show up as tears or a downcast face. Sometimes it hides behind smiles, jokes, and "I'm fine" responses. Depression is complex, layered, and different for everyone, but it always leaves marks. Some are subtle, others are loud, but all of them matter. If you've ever wondered whether someone you care about, or maybe even you, might be battling depression, it's essential to understand the signs. Recognizing these signals isn't just about labeling emotions. It's about compassion, awareness, and more importantly, the possibility of healing. Today, we'll explore 8 key signs of depression that often go unnoticed but can offer vital insight into someone's emotional and mental state. Persistent sadness or emptiness that won't go away. One of the most common and yet easily dismissed signs of depression is a lingering sense of sadness or emptiness. Everyone feels low from time to time, especially after disappointments or life changes. But depression takes sadness and stretches it across weeks, months, or even years. It becomes a background noise in your life, humming constantly, even on days when things seem okay. It isn't always about crying or being visibly upset. Sometimes it's a dull ache, a kind of hollow feeling that nothing seems to fill. People often describe it as walking through life like a ghost, going through the motions without feeling truly present. This emptiness isn't cured by a good night's sleep or a fun night out. It stays. And for those living with it, it's incredibly exhausting. It can make even the smallest task feel monumental. If someone you know seems perpetually weighed down, unable to shake off a sense of gloom no matter how many positive things surround them, it could be a cry for help, one that's buried under layers of silence. Loss of interest in things once loved. Imagine suddenly losing the appetite for the things that once lit your soul on fire. That's what happens with depression. Hobbies that used to bring joy, music, painting, reading, sports, or even spending time with loved ones, begin to feel like chores or, worse, pointless. This loss of interest, known as anhedonia, is one of depression's cruelest symptoms. It robs people of the very things that used to ground and uplift them. It's not that they don't want to enjoy life anymore. It's that they can't. The brain, dulled by depression, doesn't register pleasure the way it used to. So a person might stop showing up for events, cancel plans more often, or withdraw from activities that once defined who they were. It may look like laziness or detachment from the outside, but inside, it's a silent battle against a force that's draining their desire to live fully. If someone you know starts fading away from their passions, don't assume they're just going through a phase. They might be losing their connection to joy, and that's something worth noticing. Changes in appetite or weight. Depression doesn't just affect the mind, it takes a toll on the body. A common but often overlooked sign is a significant change in appetite. Some people may find themselves eating much less than usual, feeling as if food has lost its taste or appeal. Others might eat far more than they normally would, using food as a source of comfort to numb the pain. These shifts often lead to noticeable weight changes over time. The connection between mood and appetite is strong. Our brain's emotional centers directly influence hunger signals. Depression can confuse or override these signals, leading to erratic eating habits. And when someone's weight starts to fluctuate significantly, it's rarely just about diet or exercise. The emotional roots go deeper. If you notice a friend shrinking into their clothes or gaining weight unexpectedly, while also seeming withdrawn or emotionally distant, it may be more than just a physical transformation. It might be their body expressing what their words can't say out loud. 4. Sleep disturbances and fatigue that doesn't go away. One of depression's most frustrating companions is the havoc it wreaks on sleep. Some people find themselves lying awake for hours, staring at the ceiling with a restless mind that won't turn off. Others may sleep excessively, staying in bed all day and still feeling exhausted. Insomnia and hypersomnia are both signs that the body is struggling to regulate its natural rhythms due to emotional turmoil. And regardless of how many hours they sleep, people with depression often wake up feeling drained, as though they've been carrying an emotional burden in their dreams. This constant fatigue goes beyond physical tiredness. It's the kind of exhaustion that seeps into your bones, making it difficult to focus, move, or even care about anything. It's not about being lazy. It's about surviving each moment with limited emotional energy. If someone you know is always tired, complaining about sleepless nights, or sleeping all day just to avoid being awake, they might not be lazy. They might be lost in a battle you can't see. Difficulty concentrating or making decisions. Have you ever felt like your brain was full of fog? For people dealing with depression, this mental haze is a daily reality. Depression often impairs concentration, making it hard to read, focus on work, or even follow a simple conversation. It becomes nearly impossible to make decisions, even ones that seem small, like what to eat, what to wear, or whether to respond to a message. This cognitive disruption is not about intellect. It's about emotional overload. The brain is too busy managing inner chaos to perform its usual functions effectively. People often feel frustrated with themselves, ashamed that their minds don't work the way they used to. They may forget appointments, zone out during conversations, or seem detached from their surroundings. This struggle often affects their performance at school or work, leading to more guilt and self-doubt. If you notice someone repeatedly distracted, indecisive, or mentally distant, consider that they might be carrying the invisible weight of depression. Their mind isn't failing, it's just overwhelmed. Feelings of worthlessness or excessive guilt. Depression doesn't just make people feel bad, it often convinces them that they are bad. One of the darkest signs is a recurring sense of worthlessness. People may start believing they're a burden, that they don't matter, or that the world would be better off without them. They might apologize constantly, even for things they didn't do, or express feelings of guilt over things that aren't their fault. These thoughts aren't based on reality. They're distortions fueled by the illness, but they feel real to the person experiencing them. Self-esteem plummets. Every mistake becomes a mountain. Every flaw becomes a reflection of who they are. This internal narrative is incredibly damaging, and it can spiral quickly if left unchecked. People stop seeing their value. They might downplay their accomplishments or dismiss compliments as lies. If someone you know frequently puts themselves down or talks about being useless, they may be trapped in a mental loop of shame and hopelessness. And that loop needs compassion, not judgment. Withdrawal from friends, family, and social activities. When depression sets in, social connections often become too overwhelming to maintain. A person may start pulling away from friends, skipping events, or ignoring calls and messages. It's not because they've stopped caring. It's because their emotional tank is running on empty. Interacting with others requires energy they simply don't have. Social isolation becomes a coping mechanism, a way to retreat from expectations and avoid the pressure of pretending they're okay. Unfortunately, this isolation often worsens the depression, creating a vicious cycle. The more they withdraw, the lonelier they feel, and the harder it becomes to reach out. It can be heartbreaking to see someone you care about slowly disappear from your life. But try to remember, it's not personal. They're not trying to hurt you. They're just trying to survive in the only way they know how. If you sense someone you love fading away, gently remind them that you're still there, even in silence. 8. Thoughts of death or suicide. Perhaps the most alarming sign of depression is when someone begins to think about death, whether passively or actively. These thoughts may start subtly, like wishing they could disappear or that they weren't a burden anymore. Over time, they can escalate to suicidal ideation. Not everyone who has these thoughts will act on them, but they are always serious and should never be ignored. Depression can convince people that there's no way out of their pain, that things will never get better, and that the world would be better without them. These thoughts are symptoms of an illness, not truths. If someone you know talks about feeling hopeless, says goodbye in unusual ways, or starts giving away their possessions, these could be warning signs. They may not openly admit they're struggling, but their behavior speaks volumes. Talking about suicide doesn't make it more likely to happen. On the contrary, it often opens the door to healing. The most important thing you can do is listen without judgment and help them find professional support, because hope still exists, even when it feels completely out of reach. Depression is not always visible. It doesn't always look like someone crying in bed or collapsing under pressure. Sometimes it's the person who always shows up with a smile. Sometimes it's the one making everyone laugh. Sometimes it's you. The signs are there, but we have to be willing to see them, to look beyond the surface and recognize when someone is hurting quietly. Depression isn't a weakness. It's not something people choose. It's a real, complex, and often misunderstood condition that affects every corner of life. But the more we understand the signs, the more we can create space for healing. If you see these signs in someone else or in yourself, know that help is out there. Therapy, medication, community support, and open conversations can make a world of difference. Depression thrives in silence, but it loses power in connection. So let's keep talking. Let's keep listening. And let's keep showing up for each other with empathy, patience, and love. Because behind every quiet struggle is a story that deserves to be heard.